Welcome to Conversations from Stritch. Today is Thursday, November 20th. I'm Dr. David Livingston, president of Lewis University, and I'm joined by Dr. Christopher Sent, our provost. It's been a great week, as always, here at Lewis. Yesterday's community hour was full. It featured a student art gallery party, CPR, AED presentation, improv, short film series, and as always, mass and a community meal. Always busy on Wednesdays here, and we're excited about that. Last night, we had the Refusing Silence film screening, Idlewild. Good turnout for that, and I think people enjoyed it. Tuesday night, we had our annual Thanksgiving dinner at Brown Dining Hall. And that, any student that's watching probably knows if you're a residential student, and I know there were some commuter students who also were there, but it was an incredible line. I mean, Chris and I were handing out the turkey and the ham, and it was quite incredible, but it was really great. And I also want to take that, thinking of Thanksgiving meal that we had Tuesday this week, just to wish everyone a really great Thanksgiving. I'll try to remember to do that at the end of the show as well. We will not have our show next week because it'll be Thanksgiving Day. And the week after, we will also not be on the air. We will be traveling. So, and we'll give you an update on that when we get back. Looking ahead, we have a busy afternoon and evening, but we'll talk more about that later. The beginning of our season that celebrates winter graduates, the nursing recognition ceremony is on Friday evening. I also wanted to let people know, and maybe not a lot of people watching, but it's a way for me also to say thank you. The invitations went out this week for our President's Circle Dinner that will take place in early December. We received ours in the mail yesterday, and so that's how I know that they went out. It's an opportunity for us to thank, during this time of Thanksgiving and celebration of the Christmas season, all the donors who really, so many of them, make possible student scholarships or upgrades to facilities. They enhance our endowment, and we take this time of year to thank them for that. So I just wanted to have the opportunity to say thank you to them. Chris, we have some things that we're really proud of that we want to talk about in terms of accomplishments.
Yeah, a couple more things to announce. Good afternoon, everyone. And I had a great time at the Thanksgiving. A lot of other staff from Lewis were there, especially from Student Life and other areas. And I know everyone has a great time, but I'm really grateful for all the people who volunteer their time to serve that Thanksgiving dinner. And thanks to everyone from Sodexo for making it a super fun, festive environment for the students. You mentioned the recognition for nursing. The nursing program was recently featured in City Lifestyle magazine in a story called The Quiet Heroes Nurses. The article praises the program, saying how at Lewis, nursing is more than a career path. It's a calling to serve, heal, and bring comfort. The program, that's a quote, the program itself stands out for its balance between technical mastery and compassionate care. We talk about that all the time. It's really nice to see it recognized by a reporter, by an outside source. Just a couple of reminders, really, that first of all, that their artwork by Devin Ingram is still on display at the Brent and Jean Wadsworth Gallery. It's on display through November 25th. His work's been described as expressive and emotional, using a variety of media, reflecting his life experiences, capturing themes of tragedy, love, pain, and joy. I know we both went to the talk he gave last Thursday night. Really fascinating person, and really diverse set of different types of paintings in the show. So if you haven't seen it, please go check that out. Also, the Philip Lynch Theater presents Airness this weekend, the final weekend. Airness by Chelsea Marcantel has performances November 20th through 23rd. It is a heartfelt comedy about a group of passionate air guitar competitors. There's Sydney, who was our guest last week, playing air guitar on the screen, who discovered that true victory comes from authenticity, friendship, and embracing one's inner rock star. It's funny and brings a lot of heart and explores themes of identity, belonging, and the transformative power of performance. I know we both went to it. It's really fun and really moving in all those ways I just said, especially around the community of people who do air guitar. Which, as if you watched last week, you know that I had no idea what it was or how it builds community, but the play does a great job of explaining all that, as our guest said.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it as well, and I was also ignorant. Yeah, it is one of the great things about this opportunity for the two of us to bring guests on and talk, because I feel like I didn't know what stunt was until we had a stunt person on. I've learned so much about different programs, different academic programs, people's research, and of course with this play I didn't know anything about air guitar. So as I mentioned earlier in my comments, there's so much going on tonight and this weekend. So just a few updates on what's going on tonight. So we have a lot that is on the agenda for tonight. We have a COES research conference, but we also this afternoon, I think Chris and I are both reading poems for the Jet Fuel Review launch. We have women's basketball has their first home game. They're hosting Davenport last night. I was at the men's first home game. Just kind of a reminder, we have two new basketball coaches this season, both on the men's and women's side. So they're having their home opener. And then in addition to the play tonight, we have an open mic night over at Ember. So really, really busy Thursday night. Friday, tomorrow night, Thanksgiving Mass and lunch will happen at the Uptown campus. And we also have the nursing recognition ceremony, which Chris mentioned, and the Vaquero Night Fiesta that Alpha Phi Lambda is hosting, Airness again tomorrow night. This weekend, on Saturday, we have a few things happening. At the Inwood Joliet Rink, men's club hockey is playing Purdue. The play is playing both Saturday night and then a matinee performance on Sunday. That's the last performance if you want to see it. Swansgiving, Gamma Phi Alpha is hosting an event to just celebrate, I think, Thanksgiving, but for the Swans, and then, of course, Mass Sunday night. Monday, Pilates is available for people. There's peace circles. And, of course, it's kind of a short week next week, so wanted to make sure that people get things in. We won't have the same traditional community hour on Wednesday, but on Tuesday afternoon, as you can see on the screen, there's a couple different clubs that are having things. You can, get rid of a few calories before you really dig in on Thursday by doing country line dancing in the exercise studio. And then women's basketball hosts at home. And then I did want to mention that there is an international student dinner in the Darcy Great Room on Thursday. So for those students that aren't able to go visit family, I did talk to a couple people who were visiting family for Thanksgiving. And then I also wanted to mention, because we won't be here next week, that on the Monday when everybody gets back, so Monday, the first week that classes return, we will have the tree lighting ceremony over at North Hall at 4:15. So just wanted to make sure people were aware of that. It'll be in lots of other communications, but I just wanted to note it today. So Chris, you're going to introduce our guest, and
yes,
I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, I'm really excited to introduce our guest and get talking. But before I do that, I want to remind us of a few things that we've announced over the course of the fall semester as a way of introduction. So a couple of pieces of news that we've mentioned. The first is that just last week we announced that Lewis's clinical mental health counseling program, which was the recipient of the Illinois Counseling Association's Leo G. Brent Outstanding Professional Counseling Program Award in Illinois award. It's hard to say. The award cited multiple faculty members who are active members of the ICA and the American Counseling Association, which shows commitment to quality professional counseling and the standards. It also reflects a 90% job placement rate of graduates and accreditation by the Council for Accreditation of Counseling and Related Educational Programs, CACREP, demonstrating exemplary professional counseling practices, including an emphasis on ethical, culturally sensitive, and state-of-the-art practices that meet the needs of current and potential students. So that was just last week we mentioned that, and then a while back we announced that our guest, Dr. Kim Duris, has been awarded a $278,000 in Phase 2 funding from the Certified Alcohol and Other Drug Counselor Workforce Expansion Program by the Illinois Certification Board and the Illinois Department of Human Services Division of Substance Use and Prevention and Recovery. So we're really, really pleased to have Dr. Duris with us. She's a professor in the Clinical Mental Health Counseling Program in the Department of Psychology and the director of the Advanced Program in Addictions, as well as the director of training for the program's Field Placement Program. She's a licensed clinical professional counselor and a certified alcohol and other drug abuse counselor. So, Dr. Duris, so glad you're with us today.
Thank you. I
appreciate looking forward to
having
talking and talking about a range of things with you. But maybe we'll start with the grant.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about what it's for and how you went about applying for it and what goals you have in applying for it?
Sure, absolutely. So the grant is an opportunity for students in our clinical mental health counseling program. We have several different concentrations, 3 different concentrations. So we have an adult concentration, child and adolescent concentration, and then our students can add on to those concentrations the addiction specialization. So it really allows our students to have the opportunity, once they graduate, to fulfill all the licensing requirements to be a licensed professional counselor post-graduation, and with the addiction concentration to also add on their substance abuse certificate, their CADC. And so the grant really provides phenomenal financial opportunities for our students. The reason the grant was developed was to help with the shortage of addiction counselors in Illinois. And so there are many licensed mental health counselors, but there's this caveat of addiction where not all counselors really kind of move into the addiction world. A lot of it is just unknown or stigma or just not kind of understanding that specialty in the field. And yet the need for addiction counselors is definitely in the world. And so the certification board, the Illinois Certification Board, kind of recognized this gap in the number of trained professionals. And so the grant was developed to really address that gap in addiction training.
So, Kim, could you just maybe give our audience, and I'm interested myself, I have, in my own family background, we have alcoholism as a part of our kind of staple of things that our family has had to deal with. And I know that from, I like kind of understanding the history of our family. So I know that there were a lot of addiction issues, certainly alcoholism, throughout the centuries.
Yes.
Is there a sense, in terms of you as a researcher in this field, that there's more of a problem with addictions, or it's become more of an issue that we want to address? Like, is there actually, more addictive behavior, or is it just that society is saying, we now understand how to help you? Whereas before, I felt like, my grandfather, who was an alcoholic, he didn't have the same tools or ability, and so he just would leave for months and abandon the family, and then he'd come back and that kind of stuff. And I'm pretty confident that his father also had issues with that. So as I go back in the generation, so can you? I don't know if you could just talk a little bit to us about this. Is there just a lot more of it? Do we have more drugs that people can get addicted to? So
I could talk for a long time about that topic. To kind of put it in a perspective, there is an absolute, multi-generational aspect to addiction. And I think most commonly people will talk about alcoholism. And I would even go as far as to say is that talking about alcoholism is more socially acceptable than it is when we talk about other addictions. And yet when we look at addiction as a whole, we're talking about addiction from alcohol, we're talking about addiction from, street drugs, we're also talking about addiction from prescribed drugs. And so when we look at addiction, it encompasses such a wide range of actual behaviors that the person is engaging in. And that doesn't even touch addiction to gambling or
Yeah, I was
addiction
gonna
to
actually ask you about
pornography,
that.
you know, addiction in food areas. There's so many different caveats. The field tends to put a lot of emphasis on substance use with alcoholism and street drugs and prescribed medication. So the question of like, has it grown? Are we just more aware? The answer is both.
Okay.
There is a lot more awareness. There's also a lot more of an acceptance of mental health in general.
Right.
There's been a great, you know, strides in the field of counseling to include addiction treatment in counseling. So even if we go back to just before 2008, they passed a Mental Health Parity Act. And that Mental Health Parity Act really was about insurance companies, amongst other things, but it was this separation where I could go and get counseling, but I couldn't go and get addiction counseling. And so the addiction stayed in the shadow. It wasn't supposed to come out. There was a lot of that stigma and embarrassment. And so the Mental Health Parity Act really forced insurance companies to acknowledge that addiction treatment is a component of mental health. And so instead of us having medical, then mental health, then addiction, it really should all be treated the same. So since there is more of the awareness and more of the acknowledgement that addiction is a mental health disorder, there is more treatment. More treatment equals more discussion about it. I will also say the other prong is there are more drugs.
Yeah.
There are more drugs from a fentanyl standpoint, from an opioid crisis, and the legalization of marijuana opens the door, and that's a whole different kind of political conversation, but it does open the door for more usage of drugs. And so there are more drugs on the market as well.
But you also mentioned, and I'll let Chris, can join the conversation, but I just want a clarification. So I think what was said is we have an addictions part of the program.
Yes.
And then we have a grant that's focused on substance addictions.
Yes.
Because you mentioned gambling, pornography. So I assume those are dealt with in the addictions. I don't know, but not in the grant.
Correct.
Because I'm trying to distinguish between.
So the majority of the education happens around addiction from a substance use perspective.
Okay.
Our program does have, there are 3 specific courses that are carved out in our addiction program. So our students take 60 credit hours to earn their Master's of Arts in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. Our addiction concentration, we swipe out their opportunity to do a 3 credit hour elective and we put in an addiction course. And then we add on 1 additional course, and then we swap out the internship in counseling for the internship in counseling and addictions. So our students in the addiction concentration graduate with all of the knowledge for generalized mental health. So our students graduate as a generalist mental health counselor. And in the addiction concentration, the ability to specialize in addiction. So the training focuses on the core of addiction from a substance abuse perspective. So medications, street drugs, and alcoholism. Once you're in the field of addiction, that's really where you carve out your specialty. That's where if you notice that at your agency, you start to see a lot of gambling coming in. So then you start to specialize in the field of gambling. So a lot of that specialization to the other areas of addiction happens when you're in the field working.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just realized I forgot to mention that you can email a question into our conversation. If you email askus@lewisu.edu, we'd be happy to get your question to Kim, or if you're watching this on YouTube after the live broadcast has ended, then you can still do that, and we'll send the question along to her. Just to go a little deeper on that, what are some of the things in those classes that students learn that they wouldn't learn in the regular program, the traditional program? Yeah.
So the addiction courses, they focus on, there's specific domains within the field of addiction that have to do with pharmacology, and so looking at the interaction of substances in the body, the looking at co-occurring disorders. One of the things when I'm talking with students, oftentimes it's like, I don't know if I want to do addictions. And I bring it into, and actually your point, Dave goes into it, where addiction crosses so many families. There are not many families that have not dealt with their own personal addiction, whether it be an aunt, an uncle, a sibling, a relative of any type. And there is a generational component to it. And, we can get into the disease model, looking at a biological kind of predisposition towards addiction as well. And so for many of our students, it's me helping them to understand that substance use and mental health are one and the same. And so a person can come into your treatment office for depression, and as you're working with them in treatment, they bring up that, their brother or their husband or this, a close friend of theirs is dealing with addiction, and that impacts them personally. And so as a mental health counselor, being able to have the training in traditional mental health counseling along with addiction, instead of being like, oh, I can't talk to you about that piece, let me refer you out, which was the norm. It's like, okay, I as the trained counselor have the knowledge to understand co-occurring disorders. So our courses focus on co-occurring disorders, pharmacology. We look at the disease model to understand and reduce a lot of the stigmas. And then there's stigma within addiction itself. And so, a lot of times if you were to ask somebody, like, if you think of somebody who's an addict, what image comes to mind? And a stereotypical male kind of image comes to mind. And so women in addiction is often not addressed. And there's different barriers for women in addiction as well. And then we also look at the children that are involved in these family systems. And so we have a course called Special Populations in Addiction that looks at different, more minority populations of addiction that don't really get the coverage that they need, the treatment differences that go into helping somebody that isn't part of what is considered more the majority typical person with addiction. And then our addictions internship course, our students do have to do an internship at an approved addiction site. And the addiction site focuses on the ASAM criteria, which is the American Substance Use Abuse Model. And so our students are trained in the different ASAM dimensions to help them to be able to diagnose, identify co-occurring disorders, understand just the pharmacology underneath it. It can be easy just as somebody, if you're not in addiction or if you haven't dealt with a family member with addiction, to be like, well, why don't you just stop?
Yeah, sure.
But for many addictions, it can be life-threatening for a person to just stop. And so you hear like the term cold turkey. Even if we take smoking, you put kind of like nicotine. Nowadays, the growing piece nowadays that is new for our younger generations is vaping. And so there are so many chemicals that are put into substances that weren't a part of nicotine, and they weren't a part of what was, marijuana 30 years ago is not marijuana today. And so the internship training allows our students to understand the differences and all of the different chemicals and life-threatening consequences of these substances. And so that is something that is unique to our addiction concentration students compared to our traditional mental health students.
So, Kim, I'd like to turn it a little bit to students. And I guess I'm going to focus right now on undergraduate students who might consider, instead of going directly into work, and these could be undergrad students in, I think, really probably any fields, but maybe you can speak to that. Like, what courses would you need if I wanted to get into the K-CREP, in order to start? And then maybe you could talk a little bit about the difference in the kind of type of work that I can do with an undergraduate degree versus a master's. Like, why would, I guess I'm asking you to do like your 2-minute sales pitch. You're a junior, you're deciding, should I, I'm starting to think about my after college, and then now I'm a senior, it's fall, I'm headed into Thanksgiving. What am I going to do next year? Why would I want to maybe go in, and would you even recommend go out and work for a while and then come back, or you can go directly into it, and what are the pros and cons of that? But just a little bit to our current students about Why do a master's degree in counseling
Absolutely.
psych?
So as far as coursework needed or what kind of background for a student going into a master's in clinical mental health counseling program, the majority of our students are psychology undergraduate majors. The majority of them do come straight from undergrad into a grad program. So if you're outside of psychology major and you're like, oh, I want to do like a shift, I'm a senior and maybe I don't want to do the original major that I was focused on, or I want to add a double major on.
Right.
That was my experience as a student. I was a criminal social justice was the title of the major.
The kind of thing that I was interested in.
And I really enjoyed psychology courses, so I added on a lot of my electives for psychology. And I wanted to go into juvenile probation. I was actually pre-law to begin with, but I wanted to do child advocacy work.
Right.
And so I did an internship as an undergrad the summer after junior year, going into senior year. And I realized I like actually talking more with the teens.
Yeah.
And so I did a little bit of a shift and added on a full double major with psychology.
And does somebody need to do, because I think that's why I raised the junior. Like there's a junior going into Thanksgiving and they're like, I'm in criminal justice or I'm in accounting or is there stuff that I can do with my senior year where I don't have to get a double major, but I can prepare myself to get into a graduate degree? And maybe you could talk a little bit about, we're not going to do the whole thing on here, but I could go see somebody and they could maybe add these 5 courses to my senior year. And if I had those, I'd be okay to apply.
Yeah.
Because I do think people sometimes have that aha moment like, oh yeah, I think I'd rather do something like this.
Absolutely. So for our graduate program, which is similar for many graduate programs, it's a 15 credit hour undergraduate number of courses,
Minimum.
15 credits minimum.
So they need 5 courses in psych.
In order to meet the minimum criteria. We do put some little caveat in there like a research or statistics course just to have that background already as they enter into the program.
Right.
And so if you're a junior and you're like, what do I want to do with my life?
Right.
What
Because some
am I
people
doing
are
here?
3 quarters or even,
Yeah.
they're just 2 courses away from finishing their major.
Yeah.
It could be even in something like, that feels totally disconnected. Like I said, they could be in accounting,
Yeah.
but they might say, but I might want to actually do that because I took it as one of my, gen ed courses, and I really thought psych was interesting, and maybe I want to do that.
Yeah.
So
So 15 credit hours is our requirement, one of the prongs of our requirement for the program. And so it's easy to fulfill. I mean, gen psychology is in there. There's, so many different courses at the elective that can even maybe help satisfy what their original course of programming was.
They
but
may
be
have
able to
already
meet
done it and not
that.
realize that they've
'Cause-
done
because this
3
has
of
been
those
growing.
courses.
Your program has been growing.
Our program is definitely bursting at the seams in a very positive
know.
way. Our enrollment across the board, COVID has opened the realities for many different pieces in society, and the need for addressing mental health and just helping to kind of combat that stigma. And so there's jobs available in the field, and so where there are jobs, there are students, and so that's a wonderful thing for our field right now. And just us understanding just the need across the board, from working with small children all the way up into the geriatric population, just understanding the need in the different populations and agencies that can serve mental health. And so our program is definitely doing, fantastic with its enrollment and our field placement sites. We have well over 150 field placement sites. We're always adding new agencies, and that's staying local. So it also gives you perspective of how many agencies are out there. So for students, if you're looking at, should I go on from undergrad right into grad? Most students in the field of counseling do just leap right into the graduate program. Our program at Lewis does have open enrollment, so we have opportunities for students to join during the summer session, spring session, fall session, so it is an opportunity.
And if you do have a bachelor's degree and you've been working in some field for 10 years, 5 years, the advisors could tell you how to get those prerequisite classes at a community college or at Lewis or somewhere.
And we do have students in our program currently who they do that life shift. and they're working in the field. Our program is designed for working students,
Yeah.
and it's not just designed for traditional master's level students who are going from undergrad to grad. And so we have students in our program who have been out in the field working in something completely not related, to counseling, and it's really just more of kind of like, that's really more of where I find myself kind of sitting. And they do, they move direction and they meet the undergrad requirement. Again, it's just those 15 credit hours, so it's oftentimes, they will have had a gen psych or had a stats course or something anyways, so it's not typically where they have to start from scratch at the undergraduate with those electives, and they come into our program and they do very well. And our sites really enjoy having students of all ages because clients come from all ages, so it helps to meet the different populations that our agencies are serving.
I get to ask a couple questions now. First of all, I want to say, and maybe this is leading into a question, but maybe it's best for me to say that this accreditation from KCREP is not super common. It's really, really hard to achieve.
It is.
It's foundational for this award that we just talked about from the state of Illinois. So somehow we need to say that this is a really great program, especially for our own students to hear that one of the best programs in the whole state is here at Lewis. So it's a good place to move on to.
Absolutely. Yeah, Dr. Catherine Helm is the director of our clinical mental health counseling program. We also have a school counseling program.
Right.
And our school counseling program also allows for students more of that traditional undergraduate kind of piece, graduating and wanting to move into the school system. And it also has a level for students or for people who are licensed teachers who want to come back and get the specialization in school counseling. So it really is. It's a very impressive program. We're biased, but it also is a really great program.
So I want to get back into the grant and the scholarship opportunity, or the benefits to being a student who's taking advantage of this grant. But one preparatory question is, could you talk a little bit about the types of positions that people go into if they're interested in addictions?
Yeah.
Or even what are these clinical sites like where they would be placed?
Absolutely.
If they're in the program.
Yeah. So our program does train what we kind of consider like a generalist mental health counselor, and then allowing for that specialization in the field post-graduation. So our students go off and, they work in larger community mental health agencies. So agencies like, if you're familiar with Will County area, Cornerstone Services, Metropolitan Family Services, Trinity Services. I have my background from Trinity Services, loved my days there. So you work with individuals. You could work in, the settings, health departments as well, and addiction specific. There are hospital settings that treat addiction. You can move into recovery homes as well. The recovery homes are like your sober living facilities, your halfway houses, looking at really kind of offering that opportunity for those with addiction who really have kind of struggled to where they don't have the financial base because of the impact of the addiction in their life. So they move into these halfway houses or these sober living facilities. And so our counselors can work in those agencies as well. And then you have your typical community private practices.
Right.
And so your private practices also kind of take a whole gamut of mental health issues that walk through the door. So our students work with everything from your schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, symptoms of mood disorders, anxiety disorders, and then in addiction, you were going to cover all of the pieces. So alcoholism, street drugs, there's a lot of prescription drug abuse as well that, happens, I'll kind of say like innocently, but it's just understanding again that brain connection that we teach our students about how certain drugs are not just a psychological addiction, but a physiological addiction. And so they can work in chemical dependence units as well to help with the addiction.
So if you're doing private practice, you might advertise that you have that expertise in addictions.
Yeah. And it is very marketable for our students to have their licensed professional counselor, their LPC, which is the first tier in the state of Illinois, and their addiction certificate. And it really does allow them to really kind of showcase that they have that understanding of the co-occurring piece.
And then I was just really impressed or surprised by how great the benefits are for the students who do this program. So could you just maybe explain, if you decide to accept the conditions of the grant,
Yes.
what do you get for that? Yeah.
So our students, if they do want to participate in the grant, then they declare a concentration in addictions. We do have students in our program who are in the addiction concentration who have opted to not take the grant. And that's a personal choice based upon where they kind of see themselves post-graduation. So the benefits are huge. I kind of did like a dollar amount, like for an average student in the grant, it would be close to about $30,000 from start to finish per student that they would be able to earn. So we have 8 courses. So we're a 63 credit hour program. So they would have 8 of their courses paid for by the grant as they kind of move through the program. They also receive mileage reimbursement, which can be huge for some of our students based upon where they're traveling from. So they get mileage to and from those addiction courses and mileage to and from their addiction site when they move into field placement. They also the university uses part of the grant money, there's a line item for a new laptop to help them to get through their studies. They receive a stipend at the start of their field placement, which is a $7,500 stipend, along with they have testing that they have to do post-graduation, so this grant will cover that testing. That's about a $450 value in and of itself, just to
And that
do the
stipend
test.
is, typically where our students who are in placement have basically uncompensated internships is what they are, right? So it basically gives them compensation for the work that sometimes they don't get.
And that was the intention of the grant, to address the financial barriers for students who want to be in the field of addiction but don't have the financial opportunity.
And then what are the requirements afterwards? Like, so some people are choosing not to, so there's got to be, in order to get all this, you're going to do this afterwards. What are you going to do afterwards?
There's never truly free money. So the catch is that they sign an affidavit stating that they will work in the field of addiction at an addiction agency in the state of Illinois for a 2-year period post-graduation. And so for many of our students, they add on the addiction concentration because they want to work in the field of addiction. So it's like, that's my plan anyways.
Really not a big cost if that's your plan.
Absolutely. For some of our students, they might not have a plan to stay in Illinois, and so that Illinois residency post-graduation, some of our students know that might not be their reality if they're going to be anticipating to move. And then some of our students, they want the knowledge, they want to be able to have the addiction piece, but they don't want to specialize in addiction. And so they opt to not sign on for the grant. But for most of our students, we did receive this grant the first time in January, so last spring.
This is phase 2.
And this is, and so we were able to serve 10 students in January, and this semester we have 20.
Okay.
And how, can you just give me a range? I know this is, there's so many jobs in clinical mental health and in addictions. But like, if somebody's just saying, well, what would I get paid if I finish my master's and I spend this money and I do these 2 years, 60 hours, what difference is it going to make in my life? I mean, obviously there's a vocational aspect to that. Like, I want to serve the world, but people also want to pay the bills. So how much, how much, I know there's a range, and you mentioned schools, hospital settings, agency work. I'm sure the carceral system needs people in this. So I don't know if you can just give a sense of a range of salary.
So the addiction certificate in and of itself, if you just have your CADC, it doesn't pay as much compared to our students in a master's program with their license of an LPC and their CADC. So that does, the master's component does help them to improve their ability to see a larger range of clients and therefore improve their finances. So, you don't always go into the field of counseling to get rich necessarily, but you don't have to live a life of poverty either. So a student graduating with a master's in counseling with an addiction concentration, you're probably going to be looking into that like mid-50 range as your starting off salary. And then there's opportunities for further licensure after you've been in the field for a couple years, and then that kind of grows your opportunity to advance at agencies. And then as you kind of earn what is your LC piece, your licensed clinical professional counselor, plus having your addiction certificate, that opens the door for clinical supervision. And so then you'll be able to go into more supervisory roles, and then that expands your financial opportunities.
Thank you.
Fascinating. So tell us a little bit about how you got into this work, both
Sure.
as a professor and you said you were a practitioner as well.
Yes. Yeah. So I worked in the field of mental health before actually coming back to Lewis from an employment standpoint. And so I started off, I mentioned how I was originally interested in like pre-law and, working at child advocacy, really enjoyed that one-on-one work when I did my juvenile probation internship. I was with DuPage County back in the day. And so I started working at a residential facility for adolescent boys. They were 13 to 17 years old. They kind of had one foot in corrections, unfortunately, and then the addiction piece. And so the addiction piece obviously was a part of their correctional component.
Right.
And so they were placed in the residential home to receive treatment. So they would do schooling and get counseling, there. And it really kind of piqued my interest into this whole like co-occurring piece of it. And so I actually earned my CADC while I was earning my master's degree. So I'm a Lewis double grad. And so I earned my CADC before I even had my master's degree. And then after my master's degree, I was working with adults with severe chronic mental health issues. And so they had schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder diagnoses. And then I really just, it sounds cliche, but I loved my time at Lewis. I really like the connection to the professors, that there was just a genuineness in wanting like the students to succeed. So when I earned my license, I called my old advisor back. I was like, hey, I got my license. And he was like, that's great. Do you ever think about adjuncting? I was like, no, I didn't, So I started off adjuncting and really just loved that opportunity to bring my clinical world back into the classroom. And, I will say that is a plug for our program. We have, active practitioners in the program. So what we're talking about in the classroom, like we actually know how to do it. We're not just talking about it from a textbook. And I really just love that piece of it, and started at Lewis in the psychology department running their field placement program. And then I went back for my doctorate later on. So that whole like, do I have to follow this traditional path? I was out of school, oh my gosh, probably, I was already married and having my second child and that when I went back for my doctorate degree. And
that was inspired primarily by wanting to be a professor?
It was.
After
it was.
adjuncting?
Yeah, after adjuncting, I just really love that connection piece with the students, being able to really kind of train them on what the actual world of counseling needs from our students, our incoming counselors in training. So I went back for my doctorate degree in counselor education supervision so that I could really have that opportunity to teach full time.
I want to ask a little bit about that because we often talk about, I know we're almost out of time, we often talk about many professors at Lewis have this similar story, right?
Yeah.
And we really value that people are knowledgeable about the field. We value research and scholarship as well, but it all kind of comes together.
Yeah.
But how do counselors stay connected? Do you maintain your license?
Yes.
Even as a full-time professor?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'm active with clinical work with agencies in the area, doing clinical supervision, consultation as well. I'm very active in the Illinois Counseling Association, which really kind of keeps the connection to other professionals in the field. So I've never let my CDC or my LCPC lapse, and it's something that I use on a weekly basis.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great.
Well, do you have any final questions?
No, I guess I just want to say thank you, not only for the great work you do with our students, but your leadership in the broader state community and bringing this grant and these opportunities to our students. I think, my sense is that, addictions, again, I don't know if they've actually grown in behaviorally, but it certainly is something that impacts so many people's lives. And so that we have more of a science around being able to really help people is really great. So I appreciate your work and really grateful that you were willing to come and share a little bit of this with our audience. So thanks for all of that.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So we will wrap it up. I just want to say thanks again for joining us today. We hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Enjoy the time with family and friends. And we are grateful for you. and grateful for everybody at the university who makes our students' lives much more exciting and envelops them with an environment of belonging and hope. So have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Many blessings to you and all those that you love.